episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
And what's up, STS Nation? Welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. If you could only see what's going on behind the scenes, the COE and I battling over a microphone issue as poor Dave Aronberg and Tamara Demko are listening to marital woes in real time. But the mic now appears to be working. And I don't know if that's because both Tamara and Dave are muted, but we're about to find out. We are talking about a very kind of sad and somber note today. And that, of course, is the fact that today would be Dan Markel's 51st birthday. Obviously, he is no longer here. For those who do not know, he is the Harvard-educated FSU Law Professor. He was gunned down in his Tallahassee driveway back in 2014. Two hitmen and a go-between, a woman named Katie Magbanawa, are already convicted of the crime, and they are sitting in prison where they belong. Ex-brother-in-law Charlie Adelson, meanwhile, is sitting in a Leon County jail up in Tallahassee. His murder trial for all this set to begin October 23rd. And best guess, you guessed it, Dave Aronberg is here. He is the Florida state attorney for Palm Beach County. The state attorney is also a former member of the Florida Senate. He was elected to the Senate in 2002 as its youngest member and served for 8 years. He's a graduate of Harvard, undergrad, and Harvard Law. So from that, you can deduce that he's not dumb. How about that? Tamara Demko has more letters after her name than the alphabet itself. She's got a doctor, a PH, I think that is public health, a JD, that is law, and an RN, a nurse. And these are good friends of Dan Markel. So it just goes to show you sort of the circles that he was in with his level of intelligence. Dr. Tamara Demko has 20 years of experience in public health and healthcare that spans the private, public, and government sectors. She works as a public health consultant and publication specialist with the National Association of Chronic Disease Directors. Another friend, Orly Lobel, was set to join. However, she was unable to due to some family issues and things of that nature. So we appreciate the fact that she made the effort. We will get her on next time. Tamara, how are you doing? You're in Florida, and you know the trial is going to be starting in just a matter of weeks. Ahead of this trial, what's your mood like?
It's been a long time coming, and I can't believe it's been 9 years that he's been gone. I feel it's really appropriate to remember him and the blessing that his life has been on so many people on his birthday. So I'm looking forward to the trial progressing. I'm looking forward to getting to a point where justice can fully be served.
And we're going to do kind of a double episode in one, if you will. So Tamara can't really talk about the case for legal reasons and prefers not to. So we're going to talk to her. Hopefully Dave's going to stay on. And then in the waiting room, I have Judy Tsang of Asian American Legal Focus, who has an excellent YouTube channel. She's going to pop in about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, as is Tim Jansen, Tallahassee's best known criminal defense attorney. So we're going to, kind of remember Dan for the first bunch of minutes of the show and then move on to some of the legal issues because there was a hearing in court today. And I'm going to pop off Black Widower, who's coming to us from the Republic of Ireland, and pop up Ruth Markel gave me these photos. You see Dan at his son's bris on the left, a headshot of Dan looking very legal-esque, and then him on the beach of Tel Aviv, I believe, on the right. That is besieged now, and the COE is loving it because I'm getting some static in my ear, and she knows it, and she's loving the fact that she was right and I am wrong. Dave Aronberg, to you, I mean, what is it like? Same question. It's been 9 years, over 9 years now, and the first Adelson is set to stand trial here. What's it like for you to know that justice could be coming in a matter of weeks? Oh, Sorry, Dave, I got you muted, so hang tight. And that is the COE's fault. There you go.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right. It's great to be back with you, Joel, and to have Tamara here because she was closest to Dan. And, I used to see Dan every year when I was up in Tallahassee when I was a state senator. And we were part of the small Harvard club of Tallahassee. And as is Tamara, by the way, she's another Harvard Law School graduate. And, Dan was just a brilliant, caring soul. And Ruth, I finally got a chance to communicate with her, and I've heard her speak, and you can see where he gets it from, the values that they share of justice, their integrity, and to see it snuffed out so cavalierly by hitmen over allegedly, if I have to say allegedly, a custody matter. But I think for the first time, you're going to see an Adelson go on trial, and this is an important case, and I think the evidence is really strong. And the question for me is, how will they use Katie in the case? Because she's obviously a key witness, but the problem with that is that she is a liar. She lied under oath multiple times in 2 trials. And so it's a skill that prosecutors have to be able to get at that fact in their direct so that it's not a surprise on cross. So you want to take the sting out and explain to the jury essentially that, yeah, she's a liar, but she's telling the truth now. And here's why. We've got corroboration. And that's why you should believe her. So I'm really looking forward to this trial. It's long overdue. And I can't believe, as Tamara said, that it's been 9 years already since Dan was murdered.
I am not T-Pain here as one of the mods. Hello, STS Nation, sending love and prayers to everyone in Israel right now. One of our viewers, our regulars, one of our family members here is Tali Schechter. Look at this. Henshi Held is coming to us from Jerusalem right now, trying to keep our spirits up. Stay strong, Henshi. He's another STS member coming to us from Israel. And the other one I was going to mention is Tali Schechter, whose family is actually in the South, I believe, but she is in Tel Aviv, and I've been in touch with her, sending love and prayers to her. And I think you guys saw on Twitter, not to make this about myself in any way, but my 2 nephews through marriage are both fighting on the border in northern Israel, and I'll put a link in there. They left for war so quickly that they don't have phone chargers, they have no pillows, no blankets. They are sleeping using leaves as pillows right now on the ground. The Israeli army does things a little bit differently. They're not operating out of actual bases. They just plant themselves there, and life is not going to be easy for them for the next bunch of weeks. And the COE was trying to raise spirits and raise some funds. So we'll put a link in during this show. One left behind a 3-month-old baby. So praying for them, thinking of them, what's going on there is horrific. So a special shout out to Henshi and Tali Schechter, and of course both my nephews, both paratroopers, by the way, who are infantrymen. So they are in the middle of it. Yeah, he sent me video today. It's very emotional. They are praying, and believe it or not, they're kind of dancing and psyching themselves up before they go to war, already and eager to fight for their homeland. So prayers for them. Tamara, to you, when's the first time you crossed paths with Dan? He has a larger than life image. Obviously part of that is attributable to what happened to him. But when's the first time you crossed paths with him, and what was your first impression? Oh, I have you muted now. You know who's doing this? The COE, and then she's forgetting about it and walking away. Go ahead, Tamara.
I first met Dan in 1997. We had 4 groups in Harvard Law, 4 different groups of students, and I was in a really small group. So the entire class was divided into about 150 groups of 4 each. And then we had what was called our A group, which was about 15 people. And Dan and I were in the same A group. So that was our introduction to Harvard Law School. And when I first met him, he had quite a few friends that were named Tamara or Tamar. So he decided to call me Tej or TJ. And that's a name that people use with me even today. My husband called me TJ. So
Is your middle initial J, or was it just that it flowed that way?
My middle name is Jennifer. Yes.
Okay. TJ. I might have to start calling you TJ if I'm allowed. And I mean, just in early conversations, I know you guys are all at Harvard Law, so you're all bright people. But did you notice that he had like a joie de vivre, a joy of life? Was he particularly intelligent? Did he like to engage in legal discussions?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He loved to be the one to answer questions, and he would engage in debate and discussion. He loved having casual discussion. He loved how people thought and listening to others and learning how they thought and discussing different ideas. So he was a resource. He was great to be around. It was fun debating with him. He loved talking about his views on things. But yes, he loved life. He loved dancing. He loved Harvard College. He loved Harvard Law School. He loved Lowell House that he worked at and was a part of for so many years. He just really enjoyed life. He tried to enjoy it to the fullest. So lots of parties, lots of energy, lots of discussion.
And Dave Aronberg, I'm going to invoke my Chris Cuomo and just call you Aronberg, or Brother Aronberg. You can tell me, who was smarter, you or Dan Markel? No humility here.
Tamara, she was the smartest.
That's a brilliant. That is why he is the Florida state attorney, for answers just like that. Sarah says, by the way, ski hat Sarah here, I haven't stopped crying since this began, not the episode, but Israel, what is wrong with the world? Some people are crying because the episode began and I'm hosting it. That's a whole different story. Tamara, again, you both went to Harvard, obviously very bright people. What distinguished him? Because he went on to become, a real legal scholar at such a young age. So, I mean, you're all the cream of the crop, but what kind of distinguished him from some of the other students that he went up kind of a level from there?
I think at first glance, he was kind of a quintessential academic. I mean, if you did a caricature of what an academic looked like, that was Danny. But he was so much more than that, and I think that's really what distinguished him. It was his joie de vivre. It was his ability to welcome people, and welcome ideas and really connect others. So he was able to connect and keep in touch with people from across his lifespan, whether that is like Orly from college or from law school or keeping in touch with people. He loved to connect people to other people and wasn't afraid to hear differences, wasn't afraid to hear different opinions, different ideas, and instead he just kind of soaked it up. But he was also very willing to give it back. So he was a great listener and a very loyal friend, and he stood apart in that way.
And Dan, hang on, Dave. I'm sorry, I'm getting someone talking in my ear again. Dave, where were you when you got news that Dan was murdered in the way that he was? Do you remember where you were that day?
Yeah, it was a call from Tamara. She's the one who told me, and I just almost couldn't believe it. You don't expect your friends to be murdered, and then you immediately think of what could have happened. Like, why would someone kill someone who is so well liked? And I couldn't come up with it. I mean, I did not know of the vitriol that was happening in his personal life. I knew that, Dan loved to, as Tamara said, he loved to have debate and discussion. He had a blog and he would, debate people online. And that's where a lot of the initial, questioning was, was it someone who was upset with his policies, his stances? Was it a student? Was it someone who had a beef with him because of, just the intellectual rigor that he had? And then the motive started to come out, that what was happening started to come out. And it just was shocking and upsetting. And everything that Tamara said was correct about Dan. I mean, look, a lot of people, when you see victims of crime, and then afterwards you see people will extol their virtues. No, Dan really was that great. He was that great. He was brilliant. He was kind to everyone. No one deserves this fate, but especially not someone like this who had so much to offer, who eschewed private law firms where he could have made a lot of money, instead became a professor in a small town at a state school. I mean, he gave so much to others.
By the way, Katie M reminding me it's Thanksgiving in Canada, so happy Thanksgiving to our many Canadian viewers. Beautiful waterfall, y'all. I tried to watch Mentor Lawyer, who's been doing coverage on this, good coverage, his version of the hearing today, but I wasn't focused on it. Did the judge rule on whether Harvey and Donna have to testify? You're going to have to stay tuned, and we'll tell you the answer to that. But a lot of things came out of this hearing today, and hopefully Dave will stay on and dissect that along with Tim Jansen and Judy Tsang in just a few moments. But Tamara, same question for you. Where were you when you got the news? Obviously, you called Dave Aronberg, but it's got to be, heart-wrenching news. Were you in Tallahassee at the time? Did you get a call? How did it come to you?
I was working about 1.5 miles from Danny's house when it happened. I didn't actually find out until he had passed the next day. And I found out because a law school friend of mine had emailed me, and she knew that Dan and I had been close. And she said, "I just heard about Dan. Are you okay?" And I said, well, "Heard what? What's going on?" And I went to Facebook and I saw some posts, and I figured out what had happened. It was absolutely devastating. And you really don't, as Dave was saying, you don't think that this is going to happen to someone that is close to you. You don't think it's going to become something that has even more layered horror to it, being murder for hire, having so many new details coming out over time. And it was very traumatic to hear. It was just a tremendous loss. And Tallahassee is a little bit out of the way for some people. So having Dan in Tallahassee was a really big blessing to have such a close friend nearby, a close friend on whom I relied. And it broke my heart.
And obviously there were major cracks in the marriage. I know that you knew Wendy. Did you have any idea the extent of the problems with their relationship?
Yes. I was aware of problems in the relationship, and after their divorce, I did also still stay in touch with Wendy, still spend time with her. I did not know the ins and outs of the legal details of their case. I did go to Dan had taken me out for my birthday dinner in early June. Actually, when the first attempt was made, I was out with him to dinner. And he told me then what was going on in his continued custody and divorce aftermath. But I hadn't known the details for quite some time.
And Dave, did you know? Because you seemed like you were a bit surprised. I mean, a lot of times when marriages are falling apart, people keep it close to the vest. And by the way, I just want to give a special shout out to Ruth Markel, who we were in touch with today via text. She knows we're doing the show. As a matter of fact, she sent these photos. You see Ruth Markel with her son there, and that is his grandfather. It's eerie to me because I have a friend named Josh Mitnick who happened to have passed from cancer at such a young age, a year younger than me, and he's an identical. He looks exactly like Dan. So every time I see Dan Markel, I see Josh Mitnick. So I'm thinking of Josh Mitnick too. But Dave Aronberg, to you, did you have any idea what was kind of going on behind the scenes, so to speak?
I did not. I'm a guy, and guys don't usually confide in other guys. A lot of the details about their personal lives, you have to be really, really close to someone to get that information. Like Tamara was really probably one of, if not his closest friend. And by the way, when I did hear about it, I was trying to think back. It was from Tamara, but it might have been a text message followed up with a phone call because it was so shocking. But no, I knew Wendy separately. I did not know the difficulties that they were having in their post-marriage life. I wasn't privy to all that information.
Tamara, he was obviously getting much more into his religion, into Judaism, but he was also just starting out as a father. I mean, he was coming from dropping the kids off at daycare that day and then the gym. What kind of dad was he?
Such a model dad. He just glowed from his kids. I mean, they were his life. I mean, he literally, like, if he started talking about them, he would just light up. Very involved. He would sing to them at night. He would teach them certainly about religion, but he would take them to the park. He would go for walks with them, very interactive. It's my understanding that he would actually go into the school to have snack time with his boys, just to have a little bit of extra time to spend with them. So very involved, very caring parent, and he would have done anything for them. Every moment with his boys for him was just simply precious.
This might be a tough question, Tamara. I'm coming right back at you, but I live here in Miami, and I have friends that actually go to the same synagogue as Wendy. They saw her over the high holidays here. Does it bother you that she's seemingly going on with her life, unscathed? With the assumption that the family, including hers, behind this. It's 9 years later. She's celebrating another New Year, Jewish New Year, and just kind of doing her thing. Does that bother you in any way?
It doesn't surprise me. And I think that's probably all I'd like to say about that.
Dave Aronberg, got to let you answer that one as well. She was, Miami well. She was at the synagogue here. What do you think of that? That, her life continues. Her kids, lives are going to be, I'm sure, altered in a negative way by all this as they move forward and read about this. But what about the fact that the Adelsons so far are just living their lives?
Well, what we've heard is that after the murder, the kids went to live with Wendy in South Florida, as she had wanted, and she dropped the Markel name from their last name. So that's one way to wipe out more of their history with their father. And they didn't allow Ruth, the grandparents, to see the kids. They cut them off from Dan's side of the family. And the kids are raised as Wendy and her parents wanted them to be raised in South Florida. They were raised as Adelsons and Adelsons, not as Markels. And it took an act of the legislature, the Florida legislature, after enough attention, enough notoriety in this case, to pass a special law that really only applies to this case, where grandparents in such a case get visitation rights. But then it's heartbreaking because the reports that the kids were, the fact that they did not have they still don't have a great relationship with the grandparents. They don't know exactly the relationship and what's going on. It seems that if the intent was to whitewash the entire Markel family from the kids' lives, well, then it looks like it was mission accomplished. But obviously that could change as the kids get older and justice continues to come.
The most important member of STS Nation, my daughter Vita, 9 years old. A couple years ago, she couldn't type. Now she's sending me comments during the podcast. Hi, Joel. She's the one who says, please hit the like button. I was just going to say, please hit the like button. Gets the algorithm chugging. So do it for my daughter Vita, who's watching with her mother and is in the chat. This is the first time ever that you're in the chat. I love it, Vita. You should come in every day and remind people to hit that like button. It gets the algorithm chugging. Tamara, just a couple more questions, and then we'll let you go. And hopefully you're more than welcome to stay, but I know you don't want to talk about the legal stuff. So hopefully Dave will stay a little bit longer. But would you ever think, 9 years on, that literally the world would be glued to this case. I mean, there's going to be a new Dateline episode, the biggest true crime show of all, 2020. The fact that we've got, STS members literally around the world, riveted by this. Did you ever think that his case could garner this kind of attention? And why do you think it has?
I think we all have an innate drive toward justice and wanting to see justice done. And in this case, it does not seem that full justice has been done. So I understand the interest in continuing to watch it. As I said, he was a wonderful, great connector of people, different countries, different places, and he had a lot of people who really cared about him. And quite frankly, as a society, the concept of being able to hire someone to murder someone else with such ease without any type of checking of conscience or knowing that might be wrong doesn't sit well with people. And so this case really needs to be an example. It needs to become a warning that it's not the way that you handle a divorce case, if that is the origin of this. The people's lives are valuable, and there are other ways to handle situations that are not ideal in marriages or the fallout of them without resorting to something that is not only illegal, but harmful to the children and harmful to everyone who loved him and people who cared about them, because people who cared about his friends also watched them go through pain too. So this is something that we as a society need to say, no, this is not something that we can allow. We need to ensure that justice prevails and that this does not happen again.
Well put. Dave Aronberg, I love your dog. We always have a dog on ST. What's your dog's name, Dave?
That is Blue the Doodle, my fiance's dog. It's a golden doodle. And then I've got Getty the Beagle, who's here too, who I adopted after I lost my beloved Cookie the Basset Hound, who Tamara knew. And adopt, don't shop.
3 dogs. Mazel tov on the engagement. Big news. Love it. Congrats. What do you think Dan would say about the legal system, how it's played out, that it's taken 9 years? Would he understand it? Would he have wanted things to move faster?
He would have been most concerned about fairness and equity. He would have been impressed that so many people care about his case, because he would want them to use it as a teaching lesson, as a teachable moment about the law. But yes, I think that he would have been frustrated at the delays, because he was about justice, and justice delayed is justice denied, even though I do think eventually we'll get justice here. It's a slow, lumbering process, but he would want people to learn from this case about the rules of evidence and about just the principles of fairness and the burden of proof and reasonable doubt. He would have enjoyed that, and he would been a little bit shy about being the center of it. He would not have wanted this to be about him. He would want this to be about the justice system, and to make sure that maybe this could be a lesson for people about the system. It should be more transparent, and ultimately he would want justice to be done. But if you talk to Ruth, you can see the words of Dan comes through her, where she is all about fairness and equity and burdens of proof and evidence. And that's different than most victims of crime who I work with, who really are not as familiar with the criminal justice system, and they just are not as concerned with process as with just getting a guilty verdict.
I had no idea today was John Lennon's birthday as well. Dan Markel shares a birthday with John Lennon. If today is in fact John Lennon's birthday, which I'm sure it is, this person, Shivani, who's a friend of the show, it feels as if he's been gone for only a minute, despite so much time passing. Tamara, final question. This is a kind of a cautionary tale. You never know when your last conversation with someone's going to be that you love. What would you say to Dan if he was still here, and your final thoughts about him on his birthday?
Well, I would tell him that I miss him and that I've missed spending these years and also being able to watch him be a dad to his boys and watch them as they grow. Um, I would thank him for being such a truly a wonderful and loyal friend for so many years. And I would want him to know that not just me, but many of us are still thinking of him, still caring about him, and will continue to seek justice for him and for anyone who would come afterwards who might be in his position as well.
Tamara Demko, another brilliant mind from Harvard. Thank you for coming on. Appreciate it. I'm going to bring you out and say goodbye, and I'm going to bring Tim and Judy in. And thank you, Tamara. And here he is, Tim Jansen, Judy Tseng, just like that. Judy, you're muted, so have you unmute yourself. And Dave, I know you're a busy man, so as much time as you want to give us, appreciate it. But on to the hearing today. For those who do not know, in addition to being Dan's what would be his 51st birthday today, there was a hearing, and our man Tim Jansen, he was not in court today, but Tim Jansen has all the lowdown. Judge Stephen Everett presided. Did anything, Tim, jump out at you today that you weren't expecting? And then we'll get into the specifics of what they discussed today, because there were some pretty important matters at hand.
Well, it is pretty interesting because the Jeffrey Lacoste is out as hearsay. The Dolce Vita tapes, the judge is going to give a limiting instruction to the jury that the first 31 minutes is not available and some of the context between the parties. So he's going to give them a limiting instruction. The wires, he's reserved ruling. The divorce as a motive has limited admissibility. Only certain parts are going to be admitted. The Donna haunting from the grave, he's given the state a day to be able to tie that to some action that Charlie took to make it no longer hearsay. The phone, what the lawyers, how they called, that is out. That was not objected to the previous trial with Katie. And it's interesting, the state had their own motion limine. They want to keep out, and the judge granted it, any mention of gang affiliation with the Latin Kings for Jose Rivera, which is going to be curious because the whole bump talks about language, my brother. So I don't know how that's going to work out. There's an issue on the interviewing the mother and the father. And I believe that, I don't know if they're going to have time unless they continue the trial, because I think the defense lawyer is probably going to appeal it because a state subpoena doesn't garner you federal immunity. And unless they can word it where they get federal immunity at the same time, in the Winchester case, I did that. I made sure we had immunity from both. So I think that's a bit gamesmanship, to tell you the truth. I don't think either party's going to call the mother or the father. So we'll see what happens with that.
Judy Tseng, you're joining us. You've been on this more than anyone. You're an attorney as well. Judy's YouTube channel is Asian American Legal Focus. She'll challenge the Harvard guys. Judy, Tim just listed off a litany of things. We'll go back through it kind of one by one, but what stood out to you about the hearing today?
Oh, well, first, I could have sworn the judge did not just flat out say Lacoste couldn't testify. I thought that the judge just said Lacoste could not testify about what.
No, you're correct. You're correct. The hearsay statements by Lacoste are not admissible.
Yes, the stuff about Wendy said Charlie looked into all the options.
Yeah.
Including getting a hitman. So, I thought nothing was really surprising to me during the hearing, other than the fact that they said Isom is not going to be a witness. So do you know anything about that, Tim?
Well, Craig is retired. So, and I haven't been to Taco Tuesday lately to see him. But I don't know if they really need him. They probably want to put Pat Sanford, the FBI agent, up there. And I'm trying to think, Pat probably had more to do with the case against Charlie. So I don't know. I haven't heard, but I'm sure George is trying to pare it down and try to keep it close, tight-knit, circumstantial evidence case. And, Craig can be, come off not as serious. He's got a great sense of humor, but he's not as polished as Agent Sanford.
Mary Binney became a new YouTube member. If you can support us on Patreon or become a YouTube member, put a lot of sweat equity into this, as they say. But if you can't, you guys have been doing an amazing job. Either way, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That really helps us a lot in terms of being able to get sponsorships and advertisers. So please, 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 if you have an extra minute, please leave us a 5-star review. Dave Aronberg, we're getting close here. October 23rd is jury selection, voir dire, all that good stuff that's coming up in just a couple of weeks. You just heard Tim Jansen, who's probably the best known criminal defense attorney out of Tallahassee, kind of give us a litany of what went on, and we'll get into some of the specifics. But what do you think is so key kind of going into this trial for the state to come out triumphant here?
Well, first off, kudos to the panel. You guys both provided some really important information. And I think the case is strong. I think that they've got some good evidence. It was a Dolce Vita tape. It's interesting. I'd love to know what they're excluding the first, you said, Tim, the first 31 minutes. I'd love to know what they're exactly excluding from that.
No, it was missing. They were unable to get it taped. So it's 31 minutes missing.
Okay. Yeah. And that's okay, because the stuff that I heard online was pretty damning. And when they eventually put Katie on the stand, and I think that's going to happen, and they tried to, the defense tries to call her a liar. That tape is corroborating evidence. It shows that he's the guy pulling the strings. I mean, it's hard to listen to that tape, to watch it, and not think that this is the guy who is the puppet master here. So we'll see. And I say this all allegedly because it has not been tried yet. But the motive, the means, the opportunity, just the payments, the comments, not just in that tape. There's the other tape where he's with his father. And I just think his own words are going to come back to hurt him. I don't think he's going to come across very likable. He'll come across some rich guy who thought he could buy himself an end to his sister's problems. And I say that allegedly. But ultimately, I trust Georgia, too. She's an excellent prosecutor, and I think she's got this. But in the end, the defense is going to have to struggle, I think, to explain why Katie would do this with Tuto and Tato without Charlie being involved. Like, why? Why would she do that? And it doesn't make any sense in any other explanation except the one that is the most obvious, which is the one George was going to use at trial.
Judy, Brianna says, Wendy benefited. Brianna's a friend of the show, by the way, always here. Appreciate it. Wendy benefited the most financially in Dan's murder to live her life in comfort. Obviously, this is a trial about Charlie Adelson, but is this something that they might bring up, that the state might bring up? And, I'm just curious myself. And Dave could obviously speak to this, but when the state is building its case, Judy, are they also building future cases while trying this one?
Sure. I hope so. I would concede to Dave to get his expert opinion, but even the judge mentioned that motive can have many tiers to it. So it could have been like a whole family affair where the whole group of the Adelsons had this motive to get rid of Dan, and the motive came from the divorce case. So sure, I think so.
Yeah, Dave, I'm gonna defer to you on that. I mean, this is an interesting comment, but is Georgia going to paint sort of a broader stroke picture here during this trial with the thought that she's trying to net other Adelsons to try them next?
I think she's going to focus on Charlie. And if bringing in the family helps get a conviction of Charlie, then she will do so. But she's not going to bring up the other family members as a way to try to get them tried next. Like, she's not thinking to the next trial. She's thinking only about this one, and only to the extent of helping to convict Charlie will she mention the other family members' involvement. And by the way, I'm going to leave you with good hands, because Judy and Tim are outstanding. And I'm sorry that I'm going to have to go from this episode, but I hope you'll have me back, my friend.
Dave, you're a regular. You're a friend of the show. You're a mensch. Thank you so much. Thank you for talking about Dan. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to Ruth, more importantly. So thank you.
Thank you.
Be well. Bye-bye. There you go. The Florida State Attorney, Dave Aronberg. Bonnie Lee Lopez says, Dave, thank you for sharing your memories of Danny's. I hope he somehow knows how much his death has affected people all over the world. Tim Jansen, to you. I was getting nervous with Dave Aronberg around the guys of Florida State Attorney. So now I feel like my parents have left and I can have a party at my house. Grimly Fiendish says, if Katie has proof that the Adelsons paid for her lawyers, he should be convicted easily. Is there any chance that we get a bombshell here of some sort from the X Factor, which would be Katie Magbanua, and we find out that she's got receipts somehow? Any chance that happens, in your opinion?
Zero. I think there's 1% chance Katie takes the stand. I think there's 0% that Harvey and Donna will take the stand. The only chance that Katie will be called will be in rebuttal. Otherwise, Katie, my understanding, is not going to be called as a witness.
So 1% chance. And Judy, are you surprised by that?
Well, I mean, once again, I feel like I'm kind of outclassed here because Tim.
Judy, you're never outclassed.
No, I saw on Tim's website today where he had these glowing reviews from his former clients. They're saying, this is the best attorney in Tallahassee. He got me out of this horrible situation. So, yeah, I mean, I would like to hear what Katie has to say, but I totally understand maybe the state just has her on reserve to see what Charlie's defense is going to be. Then they'll just play it by ear.
Tim, Go Georgia says, I was surprised they did not call Tamara Demko, who was just on our show. And she might be listening here because I still see her in the backstage here, and I hope she is. She would be such an asset in justice for Dan. How come you don't think she's on that witness list, Tim? And I should have asked her that, I guess.
I don't know how much relevance she had. Certainly she could be if there's a sentencing for victim impact, but I don't think she had much, and I missed part of it, much relevance. You know, she said she didn't talk much about Wendy's divorce and their issues. So I'm sure if Georgia thought she could use her, she would. I mean, clearly someone that knew Dan better than anybody.
So let's kind of go through this step by step here. So piece number one here, the Dolce Vita tapes. Those, of course, are part of FBI wiretaps, and it's Katie and Charlie talking furtively, inferring a lot of things on those tapes. They had to be enhanced audio wise. Judy, to you, I mean, how problematic is this from a defense standpoint that they are admissible?
I think it really sinks Charlie's ship. I mean, that's my opinion, because it's not just Dolce Vita or the Matsuri. I would say it's all those wiretap calls, which Fancy Fiction has graciously put together on her YouTube channel. I think I've listened to everything that she has to offer. And there are just so many phone calls between Charlie and Katie, freaking out. There's a phone call between Charlie and some friend right after Sigfredo Garcia got arrested, where Charlie is really bummed out. It sounds like his friend knew about this whole murder conspiracy and was commiserating with Charlie. So, there's just so much more evidence, I think.
Cookie Ramiol says, good to see Tamara again. She gave the TPD, Tallahassee PD, full insight into suspects. Prayers for your nephews. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. So Dolce Vita, the enhanced audio tapes are in, Tim, but the transcripts are out. Why?
The problem we have with the transcripts are in a trial, if neither party can agree to the transcript, then either party can have their own transcript and they play it when they want to do it, or they don't get a transcript because the judge under a 403 says it's not fair because both parties don't agree to it. I think the Dulce Vita, and if I was Georgia, I would focus on the Dulce Vita, where he's trying to talk Katie into paying the people, right? Because they didn't mention his name, but that you pay him as a charity. It shows how he's trying to manipulate people on the outside to protect himself and his family, which is consistent with his role in this murder. And I don't think he can get away from that, expect if they listen to the tape. And if she mentions that in the opening and when they hear it, I think she's going to get a lot of points with that jury.
Cliff Frankenberger says, I thought Jansenberger was on the menu tonight. You had to wait, and now you have Tim Jansenberger. I like that name. I may call him Tim Jansenberger now. Followed here by Yala, who says, what's keeping Tim the Goat Jansen? I had to stick Tim in that waiting room while we heard from friends of Dan Markel, but here he is. Burning Queen says the mods on this show are the best. I have to agree, as are the guests, best guests. Better community, as I like to say. Judy, so the divorce, the sort of the framework of the divorce and what was going on, that is going to be admissible as well. There was some talk they're not going to let, all the divorce proceedings and what went on in that situation be admitted, but it looks like it will be admissible. Again, that's got to be helpful to the state, doesn't it? And not the defense?
Yes, definitely.
And expand why. What about the divorce proceedings can impact the jurors in a way that they might go ahead and ultimately convict Charlie?
Well, as the state prosecutor argued today, it has to do with the motive. What they allege caused Charlie to allegedly start this conspiracy or take part in this conspiracy to murder Dan. So it shows how acrimonious things were, the timeline of things with the relocation being denied in July of 2013, I believe, followed by all the motions that Dan filed before he was killed.
Tim Jansen, your take on the divorce and it being admitted into evidence or being able to be admitted into evidence?
Well, I think not all of it is, but I think it is important to motivation and motive. You have to tie, why would Charlie be involved in this relationship? Why would a man who's an oral surgeon from South Florida hire some hitman to kill his sister's husband? And I think they could tie him knowing how close the family is, the communications, the mother's sadness, the mother's anger at Dan clearly shows a motive for him.
Tim, I love when you go into character, and you're obviously a defense attorney, but let's say you're Georgia Kaplan. You don't have to do a high-pitched voice. How do you start your opening statements, Tim Jansen, to the jurors?
Oh, I think I would start by saying, ladies and gentlemen, the only reason we're here today is because of this brother that's sitting here. He decided he was going to help his sister. His mother had decided they had enough.
I'm already convicting, Tim. I'm already convicting, but go ahead, Tim.
They decided to hire a hitman, but they didn't want to tie their hands to it because they're too smart. He's an oral surgeon. So what did he do? He used people he could manipulate. And then he manipulated this poor woman, put her on payroll. He's given her gifts in the past. He's talked about giving her this old car that she doesn't need. And at the same time, he's orchestrating things. And then when everything goes down, he goes to meet with her. And then he further tries to get her involved by get her to call the bump, get her to do everything while he's sitting in the background. But his background is no longer around. He's front at the table. And you're going to hear what he said. You're going to see what he did. You're going to see who he paid, how he paid these people with stapled money. He's got a girlfriend that said he had staples on money. It all fits. He's the ringleader. He's the leader of this.
Guilty. Jay Stuckey says, great show. Yale is the best. I'm glad that Tamara and Dan are. Tamara might be listening and she's probably laughing. I am so sad for the Markel family. No one deserved this. Shout out to the Prosecutors podcast. They won Best Podcast at CrimeCon. One of them went to Harvard and the other went to Yale. So they got both covered there. I've got neither. And I like my show better, but that's a whole other story. What do you think of those opening statements from Georgia, Tim Jansen Kaplan, Judy? What do you think of that?
I'm really impressed that Tim could come up with that on the fly. I don't know if you rehearsed this before the show, but
I didn't ask him. No, he just does that on the fly. It's crazy,
that's pretty
right?
amazing. Shows what a good trial lawyer he is. Yeah.
That's what happens after all these years. By the way, Laura Waldy says, I'm listening in the background. She lives in Canada as I'm at Thanksgiving dinner right now. Much love and prayers to the people of Israel tonight. Love and hugs to everyone. Please make sure your entire extended family become subscribers to both my channel and Judy's Asian American Legal Focus. Don't leave dinner without doing that.
I will admit, I was a federal prosecutor for 5 years.
Yeah.
So I've had some experience on that side.
Yeah, you're used to it. Yeah, that's great.
Yep. Well, later I'm going to have you do the defense, Tim. But Bonnie Lee Lopez says, friend of the show, by the way, justice for Danny. I've been sad all day thinking of this man I never met, wanting so desperately to see justice served to all the Adelsons and to see his boys reunited with his family. I mean, Judy, same question I asked Tamara. Why do you think Dateline's doing another 2 hours and 2020 is doing a show on this? And the world here, you know, you've got Ireland in this chat right here. You've got Israel in the chat. You have Scotland in the chat. I think Australia is here. Why do you think people all around the world are interested in this case, Judy?
Yeah. Well, I think Ruth Markel basically described it in her book that this case has so many things that interest people, you know, like fancy cars, rich people, poor people, plastic surgery, you know, sunny beaches, Miami, you know, custody problem, divorce problems. So I think there are so many facets of this case that really draw in tons of different people.
Look who's in the house here. MC Spunky. That's what I was calling him, but of course it's Mick Spunky. He says, I've been skulking in the shadows. Shout out to Mick Spunky. He's been giving some people gifted memberships to STS. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Tim Jansen from Brianna here. She wants to know, great question, how does the district attorney, the attorney general, and the U.S. prosecutors work together in Tallahassee?
Well, the attorney general doesn't really, I mean, they got a statewide prosecutor's office. They're not really involved in local prosecutions. The U.S. prosecutors will work with them. We don't have a permanent, well, we do. He's not appointed by the president, confirmed, but he's a career prosecutor and he works with Jack Campbell, the elected state attorney. They do talk regularly and they discuss cases. And a lot of cases, they make decisions on the criminal history of the person and whether they can get more jail time in Fed than in state. I know on this case that the FBI wanted this case to originally go Fed, but some reason it went to the state. And I don't know why, but I know Agent Sanford wanted it to go Fed the whole time.
Catherine Regier in Maui, hope you're doing better, asking about my daughter. She calls you Joel. Occasionally. Unfortunately, my kids need to learn some respect. I hope she's listening. They call me a lot of things, so I'll take Joel. They call me worse. And by the way, Susan Wood, listen to Vita and hit that like button. And look at this, Jay Stuckey. It's a family affair. I love your show. It's truly a family show. That is amazing. Yeah, everyone helps out. We do it all together. June Umchinida. I always pronounce. I can never pronounce it. Judy, tell everyone who she is. And today, her haunted from the grave comment is, we find out, will be allowed in as evidence. So just let everyone know what that's all about. What do you think about the fact that it's going to be admissible?
Sure. Well, I mean, that's what I expected, because just as the state argued, it's not being offered to show or to prove that Dan really was haunting the family from the grave. So this was Charlie's on again, off again girlfriend for maybe a year and a half or so. It seems like he was always cheating on his different girlfriends anyway, but she was the one who had told police investigators back in 2018 that she had seen Charlie's, constantly stapling cash, or that was his routine to staple cash. And that, it seemed like they just never wanted to talk about Dan Markel. They just had this attitude that, oh, he's dead, so who cares? She also said a bunch of other really interesting things in her police interview, but that would probably take a whole show to discuss. But I hope.
Well, give us a little taste of some of the other things.
Okay.
One or two.
Let me try to think of some interesting. Well, she did say toward the end of her interview that when this whole brouhaha came up with all the arrests and stuff, sorry for my voice as usual, back in 2016, that she told Charlie, hey, why don't you look at your horoscope? So he looked at his horoscope and it said something like, something you did in the past will come back to you or come back to bite you, something to that effect. And he said something like, oh, isn't that on point? So I thought that was an interesting thing. She also said that he typically would have a little bag of clothes ready in case he got arrested. He started having lots of anxiety and mood problems, mood changes after Sigfredo got arrested. So that's just some of it.
And
I think the court ruled that the haunting from the grave, that he gave them a day to provide evidence that Charlie took some action as a result of that. So what they're trying to get is a hearsay exception. They're going to say it's not offered for the truth, Judge. It's offered to show why Charlie did something. And that would be what's called a hearsay exception.
Okay. And so does he still have to rule on that? That's what I don't understand.
No, he gave the state a day to supplement the record so he can make
I see.
ruling.
Okay. Melinda Nagawaka, I'm bad with names, obviously. Thinking of Carm, cannot believe she has to watch this unbelievable invasion and horror again in her lifetime. May you all feel the comfort of many who are praying for you. There was actually, my dear mother's 84. There's video of an 85-year-old Holocaust survivor being taken hostage.
Oh,
it's worth Googling because this woman reminds me a lot of my mom, and she did not look fearful at all. My mom would tell you she would be fearful, but my mom would handle it much better than me. I can tell you that. But this Holocaust survivor just looked at the terrorists in disgust and went with them. But you can tell what she's been through, and she's not going to take any you-know-what from them. So I wouldn't be surprised if this woman is giving them an earful. I have a feeling Carm, my lovely mom, would be giving them an earful too. But the fact that they're taking an 85-year-old Holocaust survivor hostage is all you need to know about the kind of people they are. KCL here says, I wholeheartedly agree with Tamara. What happened to Darren Markel is not okay. This is not how to bully and get your way by murdering your ex-spouse. Never the right thing. Jay Stuckey, I love to hear this. Thanks. I'll definitely be a regular here for now. This is truly sad on so many levels. Please, best thing you guys can do is please share the show with friends. I was talking to people today with someone who was asking me about podcasting. We really didn't become true crime until November of last year, and we built an unbelievable community that's still growing. But if you guys can share the show with friends, that is the best gift that one can give STS. Tim Jansen, the airport comment, as I understand it, will be admissible. What's that about, and why is that important?
Well, it says it's got him saying we'd already be at the airport. And the defense lawyer is going to say, well, what does that mean? They got tickets to the Super Bowl? Does it mean that, hey, they got evidence? There's no context to put it in. But I think the court's letting it in and let the jury determine what relevance to give it, give ample leeway on cross-examination. And when in doubt, give an instruction to the jury. You consider it whatever context you believe is best. And it's your memory and your opinion that matters. I see these comments, and I just want to clear one thing. When I say I don't think that Katie's going to testify, it's not because I don't. Ask the readers and the listeners, would you put Katie on the stand if you were the prosecutor if she could hurt your case? Okay. And if the answer is no, then if this case goes and Georgia does not put Katie on the stand, rest assured it's because Katie could only hurt the case. If Katie could help the case, we would have heard about it. The proffer would have been leaked. And it's just not happening. So I know David said that, oh, she's going to testify, that's wishful thinking. But if she's bad, Georgia's not going to put her up there, neither will Sarah. So if I'm wrong, I'll come out and apologize. But my analysis, Katie's not taking that witness stand.
Tim's been around. You saw him just riff on opening statements there, and you did a good job. He's been around, so I wouldn't be surprised to find out that Tim Jansen is in fact correct. We will know in a couple of weeks. Jay says, evil people like the Adelsons will re-assassinate their victims by poisoning the children's good memories of their murdered parent. Judy, you care to comment on that? You heard Tamara say how they changed the last name of the children. Do you think that the kids have been sort of re-injured over and over? They're not allowed to see Ruth, who's the grandmother, or very infrequently at the very least. What do you think of that statement from Jay?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have no idea what's really been going on with the kids. So, I mean, but just based on what June had said to investigators, probably the family just doesn't even talk about Dan. They just want the kids to forget about him. So that's why it kind of made me feel good when I heard about Ruth and her and Phil bringing photographs of Dan when they did get to meet with the kids last year, to be able to show them pictures of their father and tell them about him.
And Tim, just clarify this about Jeff Lacoste, because Lady Cymbeline was wanting to know if he's out completely. To what extent?
No, not completely, but some of the hearsay statements are not going to be admissible. Just when someone tells you something, you can't just repeat it, because there's a confrontation problem. It's got to fit a hearsay exception. And if it doesn't fit a hearsay exception, it's not fair to the other party. It's a tricky rule of evidence, and people that do it all the time try to find ways. And one of the ways is any prosecutor learns this. I did as a federal prosecutor. Judge, it's not offered for the truth. It's only to show why somebody did something. Oh, okay, then it's admissible. As long as it's not offered for the truth, the judge will let it in.
Tim, back to Brianna, bringing up interesting points. I believe Harvey could be called by the defense. What do you think, Tim?
Harvey?
Yep.
I don't think any Adelsons are going to be called as witnesses except maybe Charlie.
Here's look at this, Frankie Figs putting up Judy's YouTube channel.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. There it is. Judy, Tim has gone on the record about this, and not a very popular assessment from him, but he does not think other Adelsons are going to be charged in this case. What do you think?
Well, I mean, based on what Tim and Jeremy have said, they're the ones there in Florida. So, I mean, that would make me very sad and disappointed, though. I mean, I feel like at the very least, Donna should be arrested. I think there's plenty of evidence about her and her involvement. Wendy, I mean, there's just like so many defenses she could come up with for all these things that she's done after Dan died. But I mean, I would feel pretty bad if it just ended with Charlie.
And Tim, I'm assuming if there's an acquittal, and I'm saying that hypothetically, then everything's kind of, pardon the pun, dead in the water if there was an acquittal, right? They wouldn't move forward with anything.
If they acquitted Charlie, yeah. Because the strongest case they have against all the Adelsons against Charlie.
Okay. Now, if they do convict Charlie, which is what almost everyone thinks will happen, is there a chance after the conviction that there's more steam and more leverage, and that they do possibly move forward? Can it hinge on a conviction, I guess is my question.
They're going to need more, because if they had more or enough, they would have charged them already. Because then they can get these statements in by co-conspirators. These hearsay statements would be admissible as co-conspirators' statements. I just don't believe the state feels they have enough evidence to prosecute Wendy or her mother. And remember, double jeopardy, if you try them and you lose, you can never try them again. There's no statute of limitations. So sitting out there, they're waiting for something happens, you could always prosecute them. But if you're trying them and lose, then you lose.
Law RN, question for Mr. Jansen to Miss Law RN. Wendy's own statements, she says her brother stated about the hitman. So can that come in through Wendy, just not Jeff Lacoste? What say you, Tim Jansen?
I think Wendy's been called an unindicted co-conspirator. I think they portrayed her as that, and they could probably argue. I think it could come in. I think the judge would let that in. They're letting it in motive, and the brother had made comments about a hitman. And in a case where you have a hitman, I think it tends to help a jury decide whether or not that can help them make a decision.
KCL, I think she's coming to us from Salt Lake, friend of the show, on here frequently. To you, Judy, when speaking about Luis Rivera today in the hearing, Daniel Rashbaum said he didn't want to share his defense in open court. Could Charlie's defense center around placing blame back on Luis Rivera and Sigfredo Garcia, the two convicted hitmen?
I have no idea, but I don't think that would be a winning argument, because why would these two guys who didn't even know Dan, why would they go up there to kill him? So, I mean, I still, my educated guess is that Rashbaum will probably be happy to point fingers at Wendy, because Rivera only mentioned Wendy during his proffers.
Look at Jay Stuckey. Could someone send a link or something so I can provide a 5-star rating? COE, I hope you're on that. We're on, if you go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and you just put in Surviving the Survivor, by the way, you're talking to the least tech savvy guy in the world, it'll pop up, and then there should be a place for you to put in a review. And again, 5-star reviews on the audio side help us immensely. Tim Jansen, I mean, Judy just made a great point. What in the world would Luis Rivera and Sigfredo Garcia have anything to do with Dan Markel if it was not for the Adelsons? Isn't that just an argument that Georgia has to, kind of bring home over and over again? I mean, they didn't know him. Why would they go up there and kill him, right?
Well, defense, they want to throw any red herring, any rabbit trail that they can get a jury to go for. A lot of their questioning will determine on what the answers are on direct and cross. A good defense lawyer can change his strategy and not tie himself in an opening, so that you can find another way to get the not guilty or out that they can't make it. I'm sure he'll try to point it at them, but these people had no ties to the Professor Markel. The only person that had ties would have been Katie and Wendy and the Adelsons. I don't think it'll get too far, but I'm not going to say he might not try it.
By the way, I was sitting in bed the other night, as a true crime junkie I am. I put on Netflix, and they've got all new episodes of Cold Case Files. Hit play, and who do I see but Tim Jansen? They were doing the old Brian Winchester story, and Tim was his defense attorney. Big case out of Tallahassee where they killed the husband, and the guy, of course, married the widow. And good old Tim Jansen. Is she still in prison, Tim?
She is.
Yes.
And he got immunity. He got full immunity.
He got full immunity thanks to Tim Jansen. Look at this. Jay Stuckey became a YouTube member. And then, do you think Wendy will testify? Same as usual. What do you think, Judy?
Oh, I would like to ask Tim a couple of questions, but
go for it.
Well, number one, yes, I think Wendy will testify, but I know that's very controversial, so whatever. But I want to ask Tim while we have him here. Thank you so much, Tim, for your expertise. And I'm sorry some people are really negative towards you, but we all appreciate you. So my question is, why is the FBI involved in this? Because it's a state case, right? But yet Donna and Harvey's interviews were going to be scheduled at the FBI office.
Right.
And do you know?
Well, because I think the FBI would be doing the interviewing, and they wanted to take it to the location where Pat Sanford, who's still working with the FBI, has the most knowledge about the case. He would probably be there doing the cross-examination or the interviewing. My understanding, he was the one that also did the proffer with Katie Magbanua. So, and Isom's retired. So, and Pat's Pat was the one that uncovered in the videos on the buses and was able to locate the car. He spent hours and hours looking through videos and found that Prius, and then it went from there. So, and then they did the whole phone where all the phones that were in that area, and then they singled it down, and then so it was pretty good. It's good investigative work, and Pat is a very good investigator.
But why wouldn't they just have someone from Tallahassee's police department do that?
Well, because the guy that handled the case retired.
Oh, okay.
Craig retired. He was the lead agent. He retired. And they probably would have to pay him now. Pay him his early fee. I've had DEA agents undercovers when they retire. They like it because they get paid an hourly fee to review their transcripts when they're retired. So I don't know where Craig is. They might just felt that Pat's a better witness on the stand.
Okay, thanks.
I'm guessing, they didn't tell me.
By the way, McSpunky, where'd this go? I got to read this one for Tim. Tim has great hair. I'm intimidated by him as well as Judy. There you go, from McSpunky, otherwise known as MC Spunky. Tim Jansen, hypothetically, if an offer was made to Charlie to plea and give up his mother and sister as the principals in this conspiracy, making him the middleman, do you think he would do it? I got to be honest. I've thought about this myself. If I'm facing life in prison, do I throw Carm under the bus at 84 years old? Donna's younger and my sister. It's a tough call. I'm very fearful of prisons. Charlie might be a little tougher than me. I don't know. But what do you think, Tim?
Don't we think Charlie is a narcissist?
Yes.
And don't we think Charlie loves himself more than anybody in that family?
Yes.
Charlie is not going to give up his mother. I just don't see him doing it. And I don't think his lawyer is going to do it. And I think if they would have, they probably would have done it already. But I don't think they're going to offer him anything. Because you look at the prosecutor, if it wasn't for him, there wouldn't have been these people. Like in the Winchester matter. In that case, if it wasn't for the wife pressuring Brian to get the insurance money, there wouldn't have been a murder. So whoever did it, Charlie or Wendy or the mother, they were the impetus for this crime. Not Louis and not Sigfredo. They don't know Dan Markel from nothing.
Peanut Gallery says, great name, by the way. Why go through the trouble of bringing Katie back to Leon County? Tim Jansen, that's your world. Why are they bringing Katie McBanow? Why did they? I think October 9th, which is today, was the day that they were going to transport her into Leon County. She might be very close to you, Tim. How come if they're not going to use her?
Because Georgia is smart. She's got a lot of witnesses on there that she's not going to call. But if something happens in the trial and she wants to call them, she can't call them because they're not on the witness list. Defense will yell, hey, we didn't know she was going to be a witness. We didn't get a chance to depose her. But if you have everybody there, just like the defense has a bunch of people on his witness list, he's not calling half of them. He won't call a third of them. But you have to have him subpoenaed. She's only, my guess is she's going to be there as a rebuttal. And my understanding is if they call Katie to the stand, the state's case is in big trouble because they do not want to call her. She's got a lot of credibility problems and she doesn't offer anything more than the trouble she can cause at a trial.
Beautiful waterfall over here on the side. By the way, Gloria Bennett, bowl host, thank you. Finally caught alive. God bless you all. Thank you for being here. Beautiful waterfall says, I think Katie's participation on the wiretap calls is strong enough, Katie testimony, unless she's packing some new smoking gun evidence we haven't heard yet. Do you agree with that, Judy? Just the mere fact that she's talking on those wiretaps?
Yeah, I think that's pretty strong because, like I said, there are these phone calls between Charlie and Katie where they're kind of joking about, him saying, hey, and you're cleaning up the office, aren't you? And then she's talking about how maybe he should give her a boat or, don't be, what did she say? Like, don't be a jerk or a-hole to somebody who helped you out or did something for you, just both of them freaking out about the bump. There's a lot of wiretap calls that I hope would come in and also be evidence.
Ashley, very kind to you. A super sticker here. Appreciate that very much. And look at this. Go Georgia, giving us a super sticker as well. You're getting a good breakdown here from Tim and Judy. And look at this from Thanksgiving in Canada. Thank you, Joel, for STS. Best host in true crime. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Trying to live up to that every day. And Tim Jansen. So that was kind of the gist of what went on in court, but we might be back in court on Thursday. This is interesting. Georgia Kappelman, the prosecutor, lead prosecutor in this case, wants to now hold Donna and Harvey in contempt of court. Please explain this and what might happen on Thursday. And before you do that, here you go. You're looking at him right there. Donna on the left, Wendy in the middle, Harvey on the right in his dental. That's the only photo that I can find anywhere in the world of Harvey Adelson. But go ahead, Tim Jansen.
All right. So think about this. You're the prosecutor, and Georgia's very thorough. Why did she wait till like about 4 weeks ago, want to interview Harvey and Donna? Why would she wait? Why would she wait that late past the discovery deadline to interview them? Could it be because once the defense gave their witness list, oh, there's Harvey and Donna on it? Does she want to find out what they're going to say? Is that why she's doing this? If they were her witness, all evidence is she's never interviewed them. She's never talked to them. Maybe she's just being thorough. But the thing about that is the lawyer can file an appeal. That appeal will not be heard in 2 weeks. Then Georgia's got to make a decision, right? Do I not call them? Do we move forward with this trial? I don't think either party is going to call them. It wouldn't behoove Charlie to call his mom and dad. Why would he do that? How is that going to benefit him? It won't. So I think it's a bit of gamesmanship on both sides that's done in every trial. Sometimes they get the one party thinking something else, occupy their time. I think she did it with Katie, and I think he's doing it with the Adelsons. So
Angela says, Tim Jansen, great opening, great hair, great dogs, covering all the bases. Judy, what about this threat of contempt of court for invoking the Fifth Amendment as it pertains to Donna and Harvey? Where you think that goes anywhere?
I defer to Tim. I'm sorry. It's not really my area of expertise. But, people are wondering if the questioning is going to happen or if Donna and Harvey have to be there Thursday. So that I know they don't have to be there Thursday. It's through Zoom. And the judge did say that their attorney could come. It's not just Donna and Harvey.
KCL says, Tim here, and you've been part of some high-profile cases. I'm glad it's a state case so we can get cameras in the courtroom rather than federal where they don't allow cameras. Right. Tim Jansen, what kind of, what kind of X factor differentiator is it for both sides when they know there's a camera in that courtroom? I mean, do you come in more prepared? Do you make sure your hair is perfectly coiffed, which you don't have to worry about, Tim, because it always is? What are the sort of the mitigating factors that affect both the state and defense and the lawyers in particular when they know everyone's watching on film?
Well, I think cameras in the courtroom really affects the judge more than anybody. Because judges know their careers can be made or broken based on their control of the litigants, their rulings in the court. Jurors are the second most to be affected by cameras, even though they don't show the jurors. But yeah, a prosecutor knows it's on TV, high profile, of course. The Murdaugh trial was a direct example of that. You saw the shenanigans where the one Murdaugh son was flipping a bird at somebody during the trial. People act up. If it's on TV, jurors will want to get on that case because they want to be on TV. They think then maybe they can write a book. So federal court prohibits it because they don't think TV is necessary, and it takes away from the decorum of the witnesses, and they might be affected in their testimony. So that's why they don't do it. They've been staunch against it. People have tried in some of the biggest cases in America to get the Supreme Court to change. They don't even let you see the Supreme Court arguments on camera. It's a prohibition to keep that court neutral, the judges neutral, and not be a sideshow.
And by the way, that was Buster Murdoch who flipped the bird to someone during the Alec Murdoch trial, and it was all on camera. And now there's a real possibility of a retrial because the clerk of court, Becky Hill, got in trouble for not only writing a book, but apparently witness tampering, as the defense alleges, and that is ongoing. But just imagine if we had a retrial there and then a retrial here. So let's hope that that is not the case. Sadie has a question. I do not know the answer to this. Maybe Judy does.
Yes.
I saw an Amy on the prosecution witness list. Does anyone know which Amy this is?
Yeah, it's Amy Adler, who was Dan's girlfriend at the time that he was killed. So I'm still questioning, like, what could she potentially say? Have no idea, because she's all the way up in New York. So who knows?
We're going to close out with this question in a minute, which is win for the state or the defense. But before we get there, Yala has this question, Tim, more specific. The airport comment, does that show consciousness of guilt in your opinion?
That actually is an admissible consciousness of guilt, is a statement that is readily admissible. So is flight. Flight is a consciousness of guilt. So they could successfully argue, Judge, his comment about going to the airport meant that he knew he was going to be charged, and it's a consciousness of guilt. And that's a strong thing. When people say I'm going to flee, because an innocent person wouldn't flee or go to the airport.
Makes perfect sense. Wesley John Holmes says Katie's going to have something. The defense will rip her apart, which is precisely why Tim Jansen does not think she's going to get called. And then you've got back to Sadie here. There's been so much talk about this, Judy, but we haven't. What's up, Windsor? You just hopped on your chair, Tim. I haven't noticed Windsor this entire time. One or the two.
He just got
there. Can law enforcement recover these deleted WhatsApp messages? There's been a lot of talk about that over the years, Judy. Do we know? Would we know? I mean, that would have to be admitted into evidence. Do we know the state of affairs with the WhatsApp messages?
Yeah.
These are allegedly between Dan and Wendy, right?
No,
I mean,
Wendy.
I'm sorry, Charlie.
Yeah, Wendy and Charlie.
That's what I meant to
other
say.
people. Yeah, I have no idea. Sorry.
Okay. Look at this one here from Gloria. I really wish that Rob Adelson would take his wife's last name. Who knows? Maybe he will. Cliff Frankenberger says, I 100% agree with Tim, but it's not about being right or wrong. If they bring her to the stand, in my opinion, they are in desperate state at that point in the trial. I assume he's talking about Katie Magbanawa. So to the final question here, which was raised a moment ago, Judy, to you first. Judy, of course, is an attorney, and she has the YouTube channel, Asian American Legal Focus. She's been breaking this down step by step all the way. Today's hearing, win for the defense, win for the state, and why, Judy?
I think overall it was good for the state because they managed to get in most of the divorce file. Based on my recollection, that let's see, the stuff about Rivera's gang affiliation, that's also, I believe, not supposed to be brought forth, his so-called schizophrenia, which he was diagnosed with as a kid. That sounded really weird to me, but that's not going to be admissible. The judge also denied Rashbaum's request to use the jury questionnaire. So that, I didn't know what was going to happen with that. So I would like to say it was kind of more for the state, but I'm totally biased.
Yala says, call me when Charlie testifies. That will be the day to watch for in this trial. We've already heard all the evidence. Tim, is it a given that Charlie's going to get up there? We talked about his ego. Do you think he's bold enough to think that he's going to get up there and sway the jurors in his favor?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm sure his lawyer is telling him not to, because if he has a decent case, he would not put him up there. But if he needs the life vest and he's going down, he might want to be able to sway a couple jurors to get a hung jury so he can try a new defense another time. but usually jurors can see through witnesses, like the Murdoch trial. He thought he was so clever and so smart, right? And this is a man as a lawyer, and I was surprised the prosecutor didn't cross him by saying, "You've been a trial lawyer all your life. Your whole life, you have been preparing witnesses for deposition. You're preparing them for trial. So your whole life is preparing. You prepared yourself, haven't you? Nobody can prepare you better than for your own testimony." I don't know if Charlie will take the stand, but he's got the ego that he might. And, in our system, the defendant has the right to testify. And I don't think Rashbaum can keep him off if he wants to. But that would be fascinating to see him take the stand and see George across him. That would be fascinating.
Yep, it could happen. Bonnie Lee Lopez in Vermont, I believe. John Singer believes there's enough to arrest Donna and Harvey. I believe everything he says. Tim, I'm going to ruffle some feathers here. LJ was all over John Singer. Look at this, Tim, coming after you now.
I know.
Wrong, Timmy. Wrong. Katie will take the stand. Would you like to rebut LJ, who was going after Singer heavy last time?
LJ, will you buy me dinner when Katie doesn't take the stand?
LJ,
if Katie takes a stand, I will buy you dinner.
Look at this question, Tim, and then we'll start to wrap up here. Tim, do you think, don't you think if they were going to charge more Adelsons, they would do them all together? Better chance of a conviction for all. That's an interesting aspect.
That is standard law in federal court. If you're charged as a co-conspirator, your trial will be together, and it would probably be stronger to have them all together.
Judy, Bonnie Lee Lopez, do you think Rob Adelson will testify? He's, of course, the brother that is now estranged from the family.
Possibly. I mean, it's kind of funny when people just want us to guess, but I think, sure, why not? I mean, he did show up on the witness list, which, of course, doesn't mean anything. But
whose witness list? The states or the defense?
The states, right? I think the states. Yes, because he is very much, as far as I know, he's estranged from the family.
Right.
Yeah.
Tim Jansen, go into character and answer KCL's question. What will Charlie's defense be, Counselor Jansen?
I'm getting beat up tonight so much. And every time I give a defense, people are mad at me like they killed the messenger.
Hey, everyone's got to have a defense attorney, and Tim's one of the best. Tim, what would you do? What would you say?
Well, listen, I'm hoping they call Katie, right? If they call Katie to the stand, you spent half your time. They brought this 2-time liar, this murderer, this convicted person who committed perjury. And why did they bring her? Because their case is so weak that they need her to try to push it across the line. But why would they put a liar, perjurer up there? Because they don't have a case. And then you can say there's no direct evidence linking this man to the murder. None at all. He's never been to Tallahassee. They can't prove that he knew Dan Markel, ever had a conversation with Dan Markel. And he's an easy scapegoat. And then point to the shooter and Katie. But that it has weakness because, as Judy said, what ties do they have to Dan Markel? They don't. And people, unless he's a serial murderer, you just don't kill people for no reason you don't know, has never had an interaction with.
KCL, I think Tim Jansen is great. His brain is amazing, and he has an excellent legal mind. And by the way, Steve Cohen, my producer extraordinaire, and I, we have officially booked our rooms in Tallahassee. We're going to be up there the evening of October 29th. If anyone's going to be at the trial, obviously it goes without saying, come by and say hello to us, but we'll be there for the first 2 or 3 nights of the trial, and we'll be doing live shows out of Jansen and Davis, the law firm that bears Tim Jansen's name. He's invited us up. Look at this comment. My dad always used to say, life turns on a dime. It's a matter of inches. Beautiful Waterfall says, just think if the old man who lived next door to Danny hadn't looked out his window and seen the Prius drive off, they might have gotten away with murder. And you still don't know, which way the jury is going to go with Charlie. 3 people convicted so far. We're going to have to stay tuned. October 23rd, Charlie Adelson's trial begins. Tomorrow, we've had to shift things around. We're either going to do another Dan Markel show. We have to do a show tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. Either going to be more Dan Markel or Corey Richins, the Salt Lake City mom who's accused of poisoning her husband with 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl. They had 3 kids together. She wrote a children's book about it. So we might circle back and talk about that case, which I know KCL, a member of STS Nation, knows inside and out since she's from that neck of the woods. Wednesday, we've got Rachel Morin's brother on the show. We're doing 2 shows on Wednesday, 5 p.m. Rachel Morin's brother and the father of her oldest children, Matt McMahon. They are both coming on along with the geo profiler. He's going to come on and talk about how they are looking or could be looking for this suspect that is still on the loose who murdered Rachel Morin, a mom of 5, on that Mon Pa hiking trail. So those are the next couple of days. And then 7 p.m. on Wednesday night, we're going to have Lauren Scharf, who was the reporter that owned the Suzanne Morphew case. So the next couple of days, it's either Corey Richins or more Dan Markel tomorrow. Rachel Morin's family Wednesday at 5, 7 p.m. on Wednesday. We are doing Suzanne Morphew. And then Thursday, I think we're going to get back to Brian Koberger, one of the OG cases for us. Hard to believe that quadruple homicide was almost 4 years ago to the day. Until then, have a wonderful Monday. We'll see you back here Tuesday. Love you, America. Love you, North Carolina, where Judy is. Love you, Florida, Tallahassee, Tasmania, the Republic of Ireland, South America, and everywhere in between. Hang on, Judy.